Hi, my name's Cameron Beddy, and welcome to the Your Mind is Your Home podcast. I'm going to share with you some ideas and concepts all around mental and emotional health. I'm going to discuss ways that may help you expand your way of thinking that may then possibly improve how you're then living. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as I share with you now some positive insights around mental health. Do you often find yourself overthinking situations about your life? Perhaps you're a professional overthinker. It's a skill that you've mastered. It's something that you do really, really well. Well, it's something that we all do, right? We tend to go over and over situations, things that are personal to us, inside our own heads with our thoughts, the things that we see inside our heads, the things that we hear, those inner conversations that we have. But we also can and do, and maybe you notice this in yourself, overthink things that have happened in the past, things that may happen in the future. And we can just very generally be distracted from the present moment by pretty much going into the space that sits inside our own heads. Now, it was many years ago, before I did any professional training, that I think I was sitting at a bus stop and I noticed people that were walking past me. You had the people that were talking to themselves, so they're probably discussing their situations, their life events, the things that they needed to go over, the things that they were probably dealing with at the time. And then you had the people that were walking, but you could see they weren't really present, they were just inside their thoughts. And I guess I looked at them as they're walking in their minds. And maybe that's something that you do. Maybe you often walk or commute or travel inside your thoughts, where you're thinking things through, where you're pretty much detached from your surroundings, the things that are happening around you. And you might even do that with friends. You might be with friends, but you might actually drift off to things that are happening in your life or things that you've got to do for work. And it's quite common for people that drive, for when they're on their journey, they're not really thinking about the route they need to take. They're actually, again, driving in their mind. And I suppose that now professionally, as I work with people who experience anxiety in all different levels, or stress, overthinking, PTSD, as well as just general coaching, I noticed that there's this lack of ability of being present, of being detached from what's happening on that screen that sits inside your head. And I guess that kind of brought me to the realization, personally and professionally, that actually your mind is your home. Your mind is the place, the space that you're going to spend so much of your time in and with. It's kind of that constant companion that wherever you go, you're always in the occupancy of your mind. You've always got your thoughts with you that you see, and the thoughts that you watch. We've always got those inner voices that you can hear, or those conversations that you get drawn into. And it was just this realization for me that we actually spend so much time, so much personal and private time inside our own heads. I mean, you could be sitting on the sofa at home watching TV. You could have your partner next to you. You could even have your kids upstairs. But you're probably physically sat there, but mentally, you're probably not there. You probably drift. It happens to all of us. But just how aware are you of where you actually go with your thoughts? And so it's in this personal realization for myself that this transportable home that sits inside our heads that we live in, the place the space that we spend so much time inside our head with our thoughts, it's actually a pretty important place that we're in, that we are going to be in for the rest of our lives. And I guess, it doesn't matter how nice your home is, how tidy your physical living room is, because you actually leave it when you go out the house. But what's it like inside your own head? And it just got me thinking, and it got me to that point where, as a professional working with people with various mental health challenges, I came to the point where I was writing my book, Your Mind is Your Home. Now, you don't have to have read the book to understand the concepts, the themes, the ideas that I'm talking about. And if you have read it, you don't have to have liked it to understand these ideas. Because as an author, as a coach, as a human, I just want to share with you some various ideas and concepts around mental health and in relation to the patterns of thinking that you may do yourself inside your own head. And so in the start of my book, in the first chapter, which is all about your own personal profile, it starts with when you realise just how you are forming your experiences within, you have the power to change the way in which your mind is working. And that's pretty much what I want to talk about today in this episode. I want to express to you, I want to, in some ways, educate you in how we form our experiences. I'm going to give you an example around anxiety coming up in relation to how anxiety is structured for the way that it's formed inside my head, which you will be able to relate to. But once you get an idea, once you understand how your thoughts are forming your experiences, and then even more so, once you get an idea of how you can change the patterns of thinking that are occurring to you inside of you, it's that awareness that moves you to be in, let's say, more of a powerful position. That's pretty much the first stage of one of the points I want to make. But then the other point, which comes later in the book, is actually if you allow yourself and learn how to be present. And I pretty much did this with a client of mine a few weeks ago. I was showing them how to be present, and their response was, how have you made me feel so calm, so relaxed in pretty much 40 seconds? Because it is that easy. So my two main points so far, before I drift off and come back to my main point, is that awareness is powerful. And actually the second most important thing is the present moment is powerful. But let me give you an example now. Let me show you how we form, how we structure our experiences inside our heads. This is me looking back on an experience that happened, and it's where I realised I was having a bout of anxiety. Now, as a mental health practitioner, I use skills including NLP, hypnosis, mindfulness, and integral eye movement therapy. Not only have I written the book, Your Mind is Your Home, but I've read a lot, I've studied a lot, so I'm pretty clued up with lots of different tools that can help people, but actually help myself. And that's why I went into self-development. I actually went on my training to learn what I could do with my own thoughts, what I could do for my own life. And I guess I was shocked that I was having this anxiety experience, because with all of these tools and with the way that I live and the way that I work, I'd say that I'm pretty chilled. I'd say that I'm pretty calm with the way that I approach life and the way that I deal with things, because I suppose I've got all these tools and skills in my toolbox that help me process emotions, help me understand people. And so there was this one particular experience where all of my skills and resources had kind of gone out the window, and I was like, what is happening to me? And I was like, okay, anxiety. And I thought, I haven't actually experienced this for a long time, but it was there, and it was all to do with driving on the motorway. The very next day I was about to drive to see my parents, on the motorway for about 2.5 hours. And I'm a really confident driver. I drive around London on a daily basis. I absolutely love driving in London. I'm almost like a taxi driver, a black cab driver who knows all the ins and outs without having trained in the knowledge. I've worked out the best ways to get across London, and I love it. I drive to all my clients. I drive across the city each and every day, and I don't have a problem with driving in London. And so I was a bit shocked at why I was having this anxiety, and I was able to pinpoint it pretty much from what was going on inside my own head, which I'm going to break down now for you, because you'll be able to understand it to a degree of how you may be experiencing anxiety, overthinking, stress, to a degree trauma, if that's what you're experiencing in your life. And so what made me reflect was I was doing my usual, which you probably do yourself. It's quite a generalization. I'd opened my phone, I'd gone from Instagram, I was on Facebook, and there it said, "What's on your mind?" which is the kind of opening chapter of my book. What's on your mind? And there I was on a normal day, Facebook asking me, what's on your mind? And I actually realised and contemplated that actually what was on my mind was anxiety. And, you know, I thought to myself, okay, I'm able to identify that, but actually, how often do people really express or understand what's on their mind? And so, as I really thought about, I suppose my professional head came on and what's on my mind, and I started to break down the structure of my experience, which I write about, and I'll read this out to you. I had anxiety, and my life is about to end from a car crash on the motorway. That's what I kept thinking. So I was about to travel the next day. I kept thinking, and I've underlined that I kept thinking, because that was it. I was overthinking this situation for tomorrow, where I kind of was in my house going around doing stuff, but then kept getting distracted by what was playing out inside my own head. And I was thinking, I'll never see the people that I love again, as their faces, for the people I love, friends, family, husband, all popped up in my mind. And I'm thinking, what is happening to me? And, you know, the narrative starts. There's so much I want to live for. I'm thinking to myself, worrying to myself, as I continually imagine, there you go, I continually imagine thought after thought, the worst possible scenarios of me having a car crash, which then leads my body to feel tense, like I've frozen. I definitely know my gut's feeling uncomfortable, and this is all from the thoughts, the things that are popping up, like those still images and those mini movies, the scenes that I'm seeing inside my own head on that screen that we all sit and watch inside our heads. And then again, I'm thinking, what's on your mind? Facebook is asking, and don't drive, a voice repeatedly says inside my head in a fast and panicked tone. Have you ever noticed for yourself the tone or the different tones and the different speeds that those inner voices talk in? And so the voice then continues, save yourself, take the train, save yourself, don't drive. Again, talking fast as it mixes in with the pop-up images and the movies of the deadly roads that I can see. And so basically I was able to catch my anxiety, and this is where I explain what happens in the mind now, and realise that those thoughts, which are generally for most people a collection of still images, mental movies or scenes that play inside their head. You can either have one or the other, or both, or you have none, and then you are left with inner talk. That can be you talking to yourself, it can be other people's voices, it can be conversations you're having. I'm going to say this, I should have said that. Like, there's so much that happens inside our head with our thoughts, but our thoughts are broken down into, and you can think about this now, for your own thought processes. Scenes and mental movies, do you have them? Yes or no? Still thoughts that pop up, yes or no? Inner voices, or like me, in my description, in the opening chapter of my book, I have a collection of all of them. And what those pop-up thoughts do and did with those sounds that I hear and the voices that are talking to me, they actually feed the feelings. So it always comes, the emotions and feelings come from what we're thinking. And they feed the feelings, and they fed me those feelings of anxiety, where I was pretty much thinking, I'm not going to drive. I'm going to take the train, it'll be easier, I'll be safe. And it's when I took that step back as a professional and realised what was happening, I thought, no, hang on, I need to address this. And I was actually able to later pinpoint it down to a younger age, and did some inner child work on my 8-year-old self that was in a car with my parents that felt the anxiety of my mother. So I managed to work on that, but not many people know about how their thoughts are structured, how their experiences are happening. It's very common for people to say, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm worried. You don't generally hear people say, I'm stressed, I'm overthinking, everything going wrong at work tomorrow. I can see it in a mental movie playing over and over and I can't stop it. You don't generally get people saying, I'm anxious, I've got an inner voice that is panicking, fearful, worried that every time I go out, this is going to happen to me. And it's because, as a professional, I've realised that people don't have the awareness, which is why I wanted to do this podcast, which is why I wrote the book. They don't have the awareness of what is happening inside their own heads, which is feeding the feelings that they experience in their body, which then influences the behaviour that they have, the way that they live, the way that they think, the way that they treat other people, the way that they treat themselves. So ask yourself, are you aware of how your thoughts may be causing you to feel in a particular way from the way in which your mini movies, scenes, and internal sounds play out on the screen inside your own head? Now, I've already mentioned Facebook, which so many people, is it 1.2 billion active users a day. So we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, we've got Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, and we have all of these news feeds, we have these timelines where we're constantly looking at information. We have so much information about the people that we know, the people that we don't know, that we look at. And we have the information, we have the pictures, the posts that we write and share about ourselves. And we have these kind of lives that are in this digital space online, this information that we share with people that we know and I suppose people that we don't know. And as the author, I'm getting the reader, and you can think about this now, you can think about your mind, your thoughts, those scenes that you see, those sounds that you hear, those thoughts that pop up as still images. What are they like on your internal news feed? So if you think about all of the external news feeds that you have when you're looking at that screen that sits in your hand, what about the screen and that space inside your mind? What is that like for you? Can you notice how at times there'll be sounds, there'll be inner chatter, and can you notice how you'll have scenes that you'll watch repeatedly of the past, or situations that you think of in that scenario of mental movies for the future? Or maybe it's just still images, people's faces, situations, right? So we have this timeline inside our own heads, but other people can't see or experience this timeline. They can see your Facebook profile, they can look at your Instagram posts, they can watch your stories, but actually, this is the real, unfiltered, unedited truth that sits inside your head, that you see, that you watch, that you hear, and you feel as you experience it inside your own body. Now, you don't have to have the perfect mind. You don't have to have positive thoughts all the time. But as a practitioner, as an author, I'm trying to get the reader to really think about the state of their mind in relation to that content that they see. Because for a lot of people, and I've done it myself, and a lot of people that I've worked with, they can end up binge watching over and over again the worst case scenario, which leads to anxiety. Or they can actually binge watch all the things that have happened in the past in their life, or with their partner, or with their family, or with their health, which leads them to depression. And I suppose it's like the modern day equivalent now. What we tend to do is we tend to binge watch, and we binge absorb and look at all of this information that we have on our timelines. You know, we really digest so much of it on a daily basis. And I guess with things like Netflix or any kind of platform that you stream through, most people can sit there and just watch episode after episode. But when it comes to your mental and emotional health, how much time are you spending inside your own head binge watching over and over the things that you're experiencing in your life? How much are you listening to that self-talk which isn't positively serving you? And I guess the focus of your mind is your home as a practitioner, as a professional, and as an author is just really in that whole starting section to get you to realise, get you to understand that actually what happens inside your head, first of all, doesn't have to be complicated, right? It doesn't have to be a struggle where you're trapped in this cinema watching things that you don't want to watch, hearing conversations that you don't want to hear. You don't have to be a victim to your own mind. But first of all, you need to understand how your experiences through your thoughts are formed. And that pretty much is through mental movies, still images, and inner talk. Once you get to understand that that is the structure to your experience, whether you're thinking about your wedding day, whether you're thinking back to it if it's happened and you've got that mental movie, or whether you're thinking ahead to it coming, or your dream ideal of it, and again you've got that mental movie, or if you haven't got the mental movie, past or future, you might have a still image, a really crystal clear image of it. Or you might have an inner voice which is talking about what it was like, or what it's like, what it's going to be like. And so these are the components, these are the settings of our subjective experiences that we have inside our own heads. But when you look at all the things that you're good at in your life, and when you look at the actions that you take on a daily basis with your phones, with the apps that you look at, the apps that you work with, where you're looking at stilled images of people. Yes, they've probably been filtered, but you've got still images. You probably see movies playing on your screen that you just scroll past, or you stop for the things that you don't want to watch. And you probably hear things that you either listen to or you just move on from. So you choose on those external screens how much you consume the information that's there. But when it comes to the thoughts that are inside your head, for a lot of people it can feel like they have no power, no control to move that timeline, to move that image or movie on the screen from what's presented inside their head that's making them then feel in a particular way. Now, that doesn't have to be the case. You can get yourself to a position where you have more influence, more control, more direction with the way that you're thinking, but also with your ability to be less in your mind and to be more present, to be where you are, to be with the people that you're with, to actually be enjoying what you're doing. You don't have to constantly be distracted by those scenes that play in your head or those sounds that you hear. And I guess what I wanted to really kind of promote in this episode and to make you aware of is just how you structure your experiences and just how important it is to be aware of those thoughts that play out in your mind and of those sounds that you hear and engage in. And I hope you've been able to relate to that in your own way, in your own life, for where you currently are, or for the patterns of thinking that you've been engaging with, or for some of you maybe struggling with. And so it's in your awareness and through your awareness where you then get to a point, once you're aware of how your mind is working, that you get to then change and improve things for the better. And that comes later in the book, and that will come later in these episodes where I share with you tools and information on how you can change things for the better. So continue to be aware, and please do join me in the next episode or the next few episodes where I'll be talking about how your mind is not the enemy, and actually how you can get to a position where you're almost doing a mental systems update to the way that you're thinking, which is actually quite easy once you use your own awareness. Thank you for listening today, and if you'd like to reach out to me, you can reach me at CameronBeddy.com or over on Instagram for some daily motivation at Coach Cameron Beddy. I'll see you in the next episode. Have a great day.